Hi, this is Raghat Khaldoon. Today I'm going to talk about idioms, how to define an idiom, types or groups of idioms, the translation strategies to be followed. We have many translation strategies, recommendations for translators, what to do when they want to translate idioms, and 6, we have more examples at the end of the slides. Many students of English master the English grammar well, but when they arrive in an English-speaking country, they find they don't understand what is being said. Why? Because they have never learned English idioms properly. Idioms are often funny and poetic. So, what is an idiom? In the Cambridge English Dictionary, an idiom is a group of words in a fixed order that have a particular meaning that is different from the meanings of each word on its own. It is a manner of speaking that is natural to native speakers of a language. An idiom is also defined in Wikipedia as a phrase or an expression that has a figurative or sometimes literal meaning. Catford defines idioms as a free combination of words whose source language meaning is built up out of the meaning of its separate components. Neither declares that the most numerous and serious errors made by the translators arise primarily from their lack of thorough knowledge of the receptor language. Baker defines idioms as a frozen pattern of language which allow little or no variation in form and often carry meaning which cannot be deduced from their individual components. Ghazala defines idioms as a fixed phrase whose form is usually unchangeable and whose meaning is always the same, inflexible, metaphorical, and indirect. Moon defines an idiom as an ambiguous term used in conflicting ways. Idioms are heavily culturally loaded phrases or sentences, usually highly specialized in meaning and closely tied to distinctive cultural features and attitudes. Idioms belong to figurative language, in which cultural differences are often mirrored and from which translation problems often arise. Types of idioms. According to Ghazala, idioms are categorized into 3 groups: direct idioms, indirect idioms, and phrasal verbs. A. Direct idioms. These idioms are translated directly, but should be understood indirectly, for they have metaphorical meanings. Therefore, they are all fixed metaphors, saying something to mean something else. Those idioms can be translated literally, or they have direct identical equivalents in Arabic. For example, let us turn a new page. لنفتح صفحة جديدة. The intended direct meaning is let us have a new start. لنبدأ من جديد. Another example, that man is rolling in money. ذلك الرجل يتقلب الثراء. The intended direct meaning is that man is very rich. B. Indirect idioms. These idioms are quite problematic, for they cannot be understood from the direct common meaning of the word. The problem will be clearer when these idioms are translated literally and directly, proving to be wrong, strange, nonsensical, and sometimes funny. For example, there is far too much monkey business going on around here. هنالك الكثير من الأشياء المريبة تجري من حولنا. Monkey business is translated into أشياء مريبة. It is funny to translate it literally as هناك الكثير من العمل القردي يجري حولنا, for it is unacceptable and funny. C. Phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are a combination of a verb and an adverb, or preposition, or both. They have special idiomatic meaning that cannot be understood from the individual meaning of the verb and the adverb preposition taken together. Many translators may face a big problem at translating English phrasal verbs into Arabic because they are misleading and are usually confused with prepositional verbs which retain their normal direct meaning. To distinguish between the two types of verbs is to apply the direct translation to both to find out whether the meaning is possible or not. For example, please don't break in while I'm talking. من فضلك لا تقاطعني أثناء تحدثي. Don't be a stuck-up. لا تكن متكبرا.
Never sat in a bar stool before. So squishy. Oh, look at this. It spins. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I feel sick.
You having fun? Gonna check this off the old bucket list, huh? Big night for you.
What's a bucket list?
Bucket list is, it's a list of things you want to do in your life before you, well, kick the bucket.
I've never kicked a bucket either. Oh, I gotta make my list. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oh, Sonic. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Wow, what's the matter?
Sonic the Hedgehog is a 2020 action-adventure comedy film based on a video game. Sonic finds himself sought after by a tribe for his power. His guardian, the owl, sends him to Earth to protect him. 10 years later, Sonic enjoys a secret life near Green Hills and finally makes friends with Tom Wachowski. Sonic and Wachowski belong to two different words. Therefore, Sonic sometimes fails to understand his friend for cultural differences, such as in using the idiom bucket list and kick the bucket. This is exactly the main problem translators face in translating idioms from one language into another. Translation strategies. Translating idioms is the most complex and serious errand for translators because mastering a language requires being aware of its idioms and their specific meaning. Newmark provides that the main problem in translating idioms are not grammatical but lexical, thus to say words, collocations, and fixed phrases or idioms. He also states that an idiom should never be translated word for word, but the translation should make sense and read naturally. There are some difficulties related to the translation of idioms and fixed expressions, such as recognition. An idiom may have no equivalent in the target text. An idiom may have a different meaning. Idioms may convey its literal sense. The different context in which idioms can be used. Lasher defines a translation strategy as a potentially conscious procedure for solving a problem faced in translating a text or any segment of it. Most of the scholars consider idioms as being of no flexibility to change in form and grammar. Therefore, each one of them considered certain strategies to avoid these difficulties. For instance, Baker considers 4 basic strategies in translating idioms. Number 1, idiom-to-idiom translation, which uses an idiom of similar meaning and form. 2, using idiom of similar meaning but dissimilar form. Paraphrasing, for mission. One, using an idiom of similar meaning and form. Larson states that idioms are often based on stories or historical incidents. Idioms must occur when the source language and the target language belong to the same language family, sharing cultural similarities. This strategy contains an idiom in the target language which conveys the same meaning as in the source language idiom and has the same form. For example, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. كانت القشة التي قصمت ظهر البعير. 2. Using an idiom of similar meaning but dissimilar form. This strategy contains an idiom in the target language, which conveys the same meaning as in the source language idiom, but has different lexical items. The translator should own a good cultural background about the idiomatic expression to find the correct meaning and a suitable equivalent idiom that has the same function in the target language. For example, how nice to remember your palmy days. ما أجمل أن تتذكر أيام العز. Palmy days should not be translated into الأيام النخيلية, for it is unacceptable in meaning. 3. Translation by paraphrase. This is one of the most famous procedure of translating idioms when the translator cannot find the equivalents in the target language. The translator reduces the meaning of an idiom by using the single word or a group of words which match the meaning of an idiom. For example, wrong end of the stick. تترجم is translated into أخطأ في الفهم. It is wrong to translate it as أمسك العصا بالمقلوب. 4. Translation by omission. In some cases, the translator needs to omit the idiomatic expression because it has no equivalent idiom in the target language or when the translator cannot paraphrase the meaning of the idiom. For example, why don't you just buy him a new outfit and call it a day? لما لا تشتري له ملابس جديدة? Call it a day is not translated but omitted. Recommendations. A translator should do more investigation regarding the strategies of translating idioms to identify the most common strategy used in translating idioms in the field of literature from English into Arabic and vice versa. 2. Do more research for analyzing the strategies used in translating idioms in other fields, such as political, cultural, religious, and scientific fields. 3. Practicing idiomatic expressions in translators' everyday use of English language. 4. Focus on dictionaries concerning idioms in order to understand their meanings and their correct functions. This is the end of the lecture. I hope you enjoyed it. Break a leg.